So here's a follow-up on the Chauvet C2 after using it for the first time in a live setting. But before I go through the actual results, I think it's good to understand what we were planning to do and then what actually happened. So let's jump over the whiteboard. So typically at a show, if this is the stage, right, we've got the drums back here, keys here, bass, guitar, and guitar. And at the show before this one, we had those same 6 lights. So we had kind of A and B, C and D, and then E and F. So the idea is that A is up and higher over, and kind of covers this. B, so this is kind of your A field. This is your B field. C is kind of a side wash, so is D, and E, is kind of coming in from the corners outside of the drum and the keys to kind of give some backlighting to the front of the stage. At the previous show, I was running these lights with a Chauvet Obey 4. It only runs 16 channels. It's a very limited setup, but allowed me to choose very basic lighting scenes with the chase buttons that were on there. It was up on a music stand, awkward, trying to change it with music while playing, which led me down the path of using the C2 pedal. So for this show, we had a much smaller stage, and we ended up having to set up on more of a squarish setup, and it ended up being kind of bass in the back, 2 guitars, drums at an angle, and keys at an angle. We were kind of smashed onto the stage like this. The other thing to consider was that we were playing outside, and rain was in the forecast. They did have a tent, which was convenient, but it also meant that any of the lighting fixtures that I wanted to use, I wanted to be under the tent. So if there's a lighting fixture right here, it's going to get blasted into the keys. Things on the side here would be very low on the ground and not do a whole lot. So I wasn't really sure what to do with this setup. So let's pretend this is the top of the tent looking down, making it a little bigger. And it was kind of like one of these, right? Tent like this. And what I ended up doing was putting the A and B lights inside the tent as high as possible in the corners, facing across and down. So the C and D lights were under the tent here and here. And then E and F were kind of in the back corners. So instead of blasting them into the people that were on the stage, I ended up using this white tent as a diffuser. So C was aiming into this area of the tent. So this is kind of the C zone. D was up here. E was firing across to this corner, and F would be firing up and across over to here. So these were on the ground, basically firing straight up at an angle to light up the tent. It actually worked out pretty well. So as far as the board itself, it worked fairly well. Sometimes it was hard to read some of the digits when it was brighter outside during the first set, but we did have some good lighting transitions. Did struggle a bit with the chases and getting over to the modes and such. I ended up just using most of the scenes that had already been programmed on here. One of the issues I had was that a lot of the songs don't have a firm count-in from the drummer. 1, 2, 3, 4, bam, activate a lighting scene. Like Don't Look Back in Anger starts with the keyboard player. So to start a lighting transition, a few measures into a song seemed a little odd. So that was kind of poor planning on my part. But there were some good transitions, like Let's Get It On, so we can look at that one. And if you look at the previous video, I did a little medley of the various songs that we had played, and you can see the different lighting that was happening during the show. I did use the blackout feature at the end of the set when the whole yard and tent was being lit up by the lights. Hitting this on the downbeat as the song ended was fairly effective. Another issue I had was with the scene 5 that I had programmed was sound activated. And I started messing with the audio sensitivity, and even at the lowest setting like this, the lights were just changing on their own. So I don't know if it was noise or maybe the where the board was sitting on the stage, there was vibrations, that was triggering the sound effect or the sound changing. So it's something else to look into and figure out why that sound transition mode, even at the lowest sensitivity, was still going off. I ended up not using that because it was kind of distracting, where it wasn't following the music, it was just kind of doing whatever it wanted. So as I expected, during the show, having to stay on a scene, going up and down to kind of lock it in before I actually picked the scene was a little frustrating, but I knew that was going to happen. But I found myself being on the wrong scene that I wanted to use. I had a cheat sheet right next to the pedal board with big letters and numbers, what song and what scene. So I knew what I wanted to do, but I'd find myself on the wrong scene, and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. And it wasn't until probably after the show that I realized that I was used to a different pedal board. On this board, when I want to go to a higher numbered scene, obviously you push the up button. And if I want to go to a lower numbered scene, you go to a down button. That makes sense. Up is on the left and down is on the right. This is backwards from what I'm used to. I don't know if there's a standard when it comes to boards that have banks, but I was used to a different pedal. So this is the Big Sky pedal from Strymon. When I'm playing guitar, these are the pedals I normally use for a pretty basic setup, distortion and gain and stuff like that. This Big Sky has a lot of built-in effects, but here you can have different banks. So this is bank 2, bank 3, bank 4, and as you can see on the right side of the pedal is up. The left side of the pedal is down. And for each bank, there's preset effects. You can go, I use 2A a lot, or 2C, right? These are different effects. But I know to go down is on the left, which is the opposite of the foot C2. And that threw me off like crazy. I was not ready for that. I was so used to that. So probably more practice with the Chauvet pedal would be a good idea. But that threw me off. I didn't figure it out until later that up and down were backwards compared to what I was used to. The other thing about this pedal is that you notice there's MIDI in and out of this pedal board. And what that allows you to do is actually save all the settings that are in here. There are 100 pages, and 3 settings per page. So there's 300 different settings you can save on this board. But you can also use a MIDI connection with USB. Strymon has software to save all of your settings. It also allows you to download presets that other people have done with all of the different effects on here and save them on here. And I've done that. I've downloaded certain effects that people have done and saved them on here myself. And you can actually rename each setting that you want to, which is kind of fun, which you obviously can't do with the Chauvet pedal. But the thing is, you could have a saved setting. You could back it up to your computer using the MIDI controller or import other settings. And that would be really nice if I could have a whole setting set up on the Chauvet board and then save to my computer and then be able to create a whole new set of 12, 24 scenes, whatever, for different lighting, even a different band, whatever made sense, and be able to pick and choose and load those in. Again, I know I'm kind of asking for a lot there for a pedal, but I realize how nice it is to have a feature that if this pedal dies, I can go get another one and just reload all the savings. I don't have to rebuild everything from scratch every time. So that would be a nice feature to have as well. But that does go back to the discussion of the MIDI in on the Chauvet pedal, where we could have someone using a laptop, the keyboard player uses a laptop to do the projections on the screen that you might have seen in the video, to be able to just change the scenes and the fader times and the speed and fade settings on the fly. So I think that's what we want to end up doing. It'll allow for a lot more creativity. I don't have to worry about doing the ups and downs and the back and the forths, and the board could just sit somewhere off stage and just control everything. But outside of the hiccups, it was a pretty good show. I think it was well received. Playing outside, you never know how well it's going to sound, but we got some pretty good feedback. It was pretty fun. I'm going to save it for the next video. What I'm going to do is go over the actual equipment that was used during the show, the cables, the stands, go over the lights again. But we'll save that for next time. Hope to see you then.